And good morning and welcome to Morning Express. You are live on Galaxy Universal Network Channel 500 on Starset, and the name is MBELE. MBELE khulu nontando dlambulu langa lokulunga ombitho mbikazo sompiso ndaba ezitha kanjalo nje, as we bring you all the latest news and headlines at the 30 minutes rundown of this latest news and headlines. And in our first headline, the ANC Mpumalanga said that it learned in shock and anger of allegations of the rape leveled against the PEC member of the ANC in the province. And in our second story, the Democratic Alliance has proposed special public hearings on the bailing out of embattled airline. Communities in the south of Johannesburg took to the streets on Monday morning to voice their frustrations about possible evictions in the area. And our sports stories later on the show, Mamelodi Sundowns boss Patrice Mtsipe apologizes for the Nedbank Cup Langerman incident. As we get into that later on the show, allow me to introduce to you in studio that we'll be joined by a chef talking all things culture, food, heritage, and the youth. And I'm joined by SHAUN RAVELE. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Fantastic. And you?
I'm good.
Are you ready for that conversation? I mean, you are a culinary graduate. We're going to be talking food. The greatest question is, what food or meal will you cook for the president? But you'll answer that later on as I get into the stories. And as we take a look at the first headlines, the African National Congress in Mpumalanga province said it has learned in serious shock and anger of the allegations of the rape leveled against Mr. Skhumbuzo Eric Kholwane, a PEC member of the ANC in the province. In a statement released on Monday evening, the ANC announced that it is reliably established that Mr. Kholwane was arrested on Monday, the 28th of September 2020 at his home for allegedly raping his two daughters, and will appear in the Nelspruit Magistrates Court on a date to be determined by the authorities. And furthermore, the ANC MP said that he wished the public to note that these allegations against Mr. Kholwane are extremely serious, and that the president has criticized gender-based violence, which includes rape, as a pandemic, and that we should all be struggling to be dealt with at all costs. And in addition, we are also confirmed that Mr. Kholwane has been summarily suspended as a member of the ANC and PEC until the case is concluded. As we take a look at the second story making headlines, the Democratic Alliance has proposed special public hearings on the bailing out of embattled airline SAA, which has now made profit since 2010 to sought bankruptcy protection in December after battling operations. According to the DA, with over 57 billion spent by national government to rescue the heavily indebted flag carrier, the governing party has now wanted to use the COVID-19 relief funds to save the failed entity, which is currently under business rescue. In a recorded address, Jordan Hill Lewis, the DA Shadow Minister of Finance, slammed the proposal of interjecting more billions into SAA, saying that the official opposition party strongly rejects the use of taxpayers' money to foot another bill to save the airline, which he said is simply won't fly. And let's take a look at this.
Good afternoon. Did you know that the ANC is proposing to give South African Airways another 10.5 billion rand of public money for another bailout for an airline that simply will not fly? Now, we as the Democratic Alliance object to this, and we are proposing that Parliament hold special public hearings to give the public a say in whether SAA should continue to be bailed out or not. In South Africa today, we have teachers who have to teach in classes of 45 children and more. We have doctors working 36-hour shifts and nurses working stressed to the point of breaking. All of them need more resources, more staff, and more help. What they do not need is a luxury, publicly funded national airline. This is an unacceptable drain on public funds, and it is simply wrong, morally wrong, to prioritize that airline over the many services and basic needs that South Africa has, and particularly the poor. So please support the DA in our call for public hearings into the proposed bailout of 10.5 billion rand for SAA. Thank you.
And furthermore, Hill Lewis also proposed that the public hearings be held and to give the public a say in whether SAA should continue to receive bailouts or not, and also allow the public throughoutly to interrogate the reported proposal. And to take a look at the next story, Minister of Basic Education, A.N.G. Motshekga, reiterated her sentiments of gratitude of the generous support of the phased reopening of schools by the Portuguese Embassy, which has donated a consignment of ICT equipment and COVID-19 essentials. Delivering her keynote address in Pretoria, Glen Soweto, upon also visiting numerous schools in the area as part of her ongoing monitoring and support visit in assessing compliance, Motshekga stated that this form of aid will help schools deal with and an end of scourge, as well as the hammering of the invisible enemy, which is COVID-19.
I think it's just a nice thing to do. It's a very good thing to do. It's very important to learn a language, an extra language, the languages you know. It opens lots of opportunities for you. It opens lots of avenues for you. It really is a big deal to learn a new language. You know, even with our local languages, if you speak Zulu, Sotho, Venda, and Tsonga, you're one up. But now if you speak another European language, you should know that you really are doing yourself a big favor. You're not doing anything, you're doing something big. Ambassador, my husband, because he worked also overseas, he can actually teach in German. Because he was a lecturer in German. He speaks German, he speaks French, he speaks Afrikaans very well. He can give a whole academic lecture in Afrikaans. Because he was teaching at Tunisia, so he had to give some of the lectures in Afrikaans. And it helps him to, he can read any book. He finds a German book, he can read it. So he can access that information in German. He sees a French book, he can access it. So it really opens widely his world compared to us who can only read books written in English. But it also gives you access to people. Mr. Ambassador is right. In South Africa, we had huge waves of Portuguese-speaking people coming to our country, and they came in waves. After 1974, with the Frelimo Rally, with the independence of Mozambique, lots of white Portuguese-speaking people came to the country to settle here. They've now become South Africans. There are communities that are Portuguese communities because of the ways in which they have come in South Africa. So it's very important for South African kids to be able to speak and communicate with now those Portuguese.
And the minister also highlighted the importance of this partnership as means to bridge and divide between diverse cultures across various language codes.
Our colleagues from the Portuguese embassy, I don't want to go into their support or other things, but it's to really, that as a country, our friends in Portugal, we know they have been able to manage the COVID pandemic. We're struggling, we're trying all we can, but we think we're getting there as a country. Our people are beginning to really take the pandemic seriously. But in conclusion, I really wanted to reiterate my sincere gratitude to the people and the government of Portugal for their generous support, to the phased reopening of our schools, but also for just adopting the school and making it their own. These are challenging times for us of fighting an invisible enemy that seeks to disseminate lives and livelihoods. And thankfully, our response together with the international community has been marked by solidarity and cooperation. So indeed, I'm looking forward, as you said, Ambassador.
Echoing these sentiments, the Portuguese Ambassador Manuel Carvalho, addressing the media and the attendees, said that he outlined the importance of such initiatives for all parties involved to benefit, including for the embassy working with South Africans.
It's a big language for sport. And therefore we see that it's one way of giving ourselves, but also giving a benefit for the learners that take the language. It's of course a European Union language, it's an African Union language, it's a SADC language. So it's, in all those places it is an official language. We have been detecting greater interest in South Africa for the Portuguese language. It is, I mean, in all demographies, if you will, in all parts of the country, there's an uptick in the demand for the Portuguese language that we are trying to respond. We do have a network of teachers that we have in South Africa that we pay, that we support, that we send to schools. We have a teacher here. I mean, that is something that we need to have again. We are working on that, but we look at it more long term.
And taking a look at another story making rounds in South Africa. Communities in south of Johannesburg took to the streets on Monday morning to voice out their frustrations about possible evictions in the area. Johannesburg Metro Cops and police were out in full force in Lenasia, south of Lonely, early Monday morning to contain protesters. Roads in the areas were blocked with burning tires, bags with rubbish, rocks and tree branches. Officers fired rubber bullets to disperse the crowd. By midday on Monday, traffic was flowing, but some roads were still being lined up with rubbish and rocks. Heavily armed officers and police officers stood on the side of the road.
Jacob, come back with a nyala. These people are coming to attack us. Please come back with a nyala.
And staying with our local stories, a truck driver has died in what paramedics describe as a freak accident in Pytown, west of Durban, on Monday night. Leon Fury of the Life Response said that the accident took place at the intersection of the East and Stelmton roads. A truck collided with 4 vehicles in the intersection. Fourie said that the driver of the truck got out of his truck and was speaking to the Metro Police. When he got back in, he tried to reverse his truck. He jumped out of his truck and the truck gained momentum going down the road, pushing the cars with it.
Oh my word! Stop the truck! Stop the truck!
And there were no other injuries that were reported after the fatal accident. And furthermore, past that the truck ultimately went down in embankment and into the wall of the home, causing the severe damage. As we take a look at the international stories. The U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden's running mate Kamala Harris has lashed out at the United States President Donald Trump hasty decision to announce his Supreme Court candidates who will battle for the position left by the Justice Ruth who passed away only a week ago.
Few people in our history have done more to change the lives of the American people than Ruth Bader Ginsburg did as a lawyer, an advocate, and a Supreme Court justice. Already the president and his party have chosen to ignore Justice Ginsburg's final wish to hold off the nomination to replace her until after the next president is chosen. We're not even debating whether the Senate should hold hearings on a nominee and an election year. We're not in the middle of an election year. We're in the middle of an election, an ongoing election. Almost 1 million Americans have already voted, and more will vote this week and next week And in just a few weeks, all Americans will have voted. But President Trump and his party don't care. They just want to jam this nomination through as fast as they can. It's called raw power. The outcome of this election, more than any other in our lifetime, affects every part of your life and every branch of government, all at once, with consequences that will last generations. So, I know that it feels sometimes like this is just too much for us to take, too much for our country to take. And I think that's what they want you to believe. They want you to feel tired. They want you to feel like your fight doesn't matter. But we will not give up. And we will not.
And as we get into our special feature for the day, I'm joined in studio by a culinary graduate, and he goes by the name of SHAUN RAVELE. Well, we're going to be talking to him about what meal would he cook the president. I think that's the greatest question, since we do know that President Cyril Ramaphosa loves food and he enjoys all things to do with South Africa and what's on the continent of Africa. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. I think the greatest question, what meal would you cook for the president?
I think my favorite dish.
What is your favorite dish?
I'm still to find it. So the African palate is quite elusive. So finding it right now, because there's so many cultures in South Africa, especially with food. So you would want to cook something that embodies everything.
Yeah.
And right now, my journey is to learn everything from what our parents taught us to what my friends teach me to what their grannies teach.
Yeah.
So I would really like to put that together in a dish and serve it to
that Africanness to it.
Yeah.
But would you then believe that, I think you are mentioning grandparents, parents, and the community. Do you think that there is a difference between what is a parent or a grandmother at home would teach their child than going to a culinary school? Do you think those two worlds have been able to merge throughout the time?
The funny thing is, culinary arts, or like, let me not say culinary arts, but the trend with a lot of chefs that are popping up and winning Michelin stars and whatnot is culture. And it comes from, it's culture, and this is food and recipes that have been passed down. Even when you read in the encyclopedias of food, and
absolutely,
they tell you that it's more history. The dish that you're eating always has a history. And that's the thing that you see around everywhere. That's why I use the grandmothers and the parents, because with us, we didn't have time to really sit down and write our own recipes. That's why our palate or our cuisine is more still elusive, because it's still in the heads of these people. When you come to French cooking, they started their tradition and they wrote it way before. That's why it's being taught. Also Asian cooking, all these other cuisines. So that's why I believe we should.
And I think it stems my next question of, as much as we are not writing or documenting our history within the food industry, I mean, it's Tourism Month, it's Heritage Month, do you think that it's only the places like your taxi ranks, those traditional stuff, taxi rank, where we find our traditional foods more than when we enter in restaurants, and how do we then find that gap and bridge it in between to make sure that even when you walk into a restaurant, you can order a meal like a meal like Samp, anything that you can find that says African and it speaks to you, even if you're a global charter?
It's more pride of the nation now. And that's where the pride of the nation is to go in. We need to start being proud of our own cuisine, because you would rather, a person would rather go buy a steak cooked in French cooking or Asian cooking somewhere else, and then for hundreds of rands, and then when they come here to the taxi rank, and then the person would charge them the same price, they would look at them and be like, but how? You know? So that kind of thing. Also, as you can realize, in the taxi rank and the cooking is more for the working class, and so if someone can bridge that and refine it,
absolutely,
and then when by refining, then you can then...
You work on it and you mold it and you introduce it into the market. But where did this passion, this love for cooking start for you? I mean, you're a young man living in South Africa. It's always seen as not a norm to find a man literally walking into a place saying that I'm a chef, I'm cooking. It's only those Frenchmen that we see on TV that are always saying I'm a cook. But then where did that love for you begin?
I can't point it.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint it. I just always used to love cooking.
Yeah.
Not cooking, basically, but eating.
No, you were an eater before you became a cooker.
Before I was a cooker. And I remember there was times where I would be like basically helping my sister chop vegetables. I mean, there was even like a story where my mom told me that wherever I visit my aunts, they'll be saying, yo, but your son loves to eat.
Yeah.
You know? So I always had this love for food. And I think it's about 2 years ago where I was studying another course, and I was just like, and then in that course there was a lesson on food tech.
Okay.
And the more I learned it, the more curious I got with food, and I was just like, you know what, I love food. Yeah.
Not only consuming it.
Yeah, I love consuming it, but let's go learn how to make this.
Yeah.
You know? Let's stop waiting for things to happen and go to restaurants. Learn how to make a restaurant. Get in a restaurant to know what you're tasting.
Okay.
You know? And that's where my journey started.
And your favorite dish, not that one you've cooked maybe, but your favorite dish out of everything you've eaten in your life, because you're a cook. It might be something that I'd look at and be like, not really on my plate, but you might enjoy it.
It's beef stew with samp.
Okay, I've had that.
Yeah.
I've had that. It's like one of those African foods that we have.
Yeah.
But take me through the spices that you have right here.
Oh, so this was my fight against unemployment during,
Okay.
during COVID times. So I came back. I got retrenched when I just started learning.
Yeah.
I'm still learning in Cape Town. And then COVID hit, and it was a hot zone, so I had to fly back. And then when I came here, what I was learning there, I was like, nah, let me try and
apply
incorporate it and see what I can do. So I came up with a hot sauce.
Okay, the hot sauce. Well, it's funny that you're mentioning youth unemployment, and today we're going to have statistics coming out in South Africa stating the bloodbath of unemployment in South Africa.
Yeah.
But it stemmed from you being retrenched. But how do they taste? That's the question. There's the oranges, or the orange one, and there's the green one.
Yeah.
So take me through how they taste.
Okay, so this is...
and you can show them into the camera so that people can have a look.
So this one here is an habanero.
And
habanero spice.
Yeah.
It's a chili. I forgot the origin, to be honest, but it's quite hot. It's really hot. But what I like about the habanero is that it's got this citrusy note. So I was like, okay, let me incorporate that. So this is made with basically habaneros and oranges.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this here is jalapenos.
Jalapenos.
Yes. And
hey,
then it's
these words and cooking. These words and cooking.
So this is basically jalapeno and lime, and it's the mild one. So this is basically mild and hot.
Mild and hot.
Yeah, I plan to go hotter because basically I want to make like 10. So there's still like 10 coming. This was the 5th experiment and it worked, and this is the 6th experiment. So basically these are all still experiments. And
so one can't taste them.
I can make you taste this one because this is the new one. This one is already
let's try it out. Let's try it on air. I hope I don't go green.
Nah, you will not go green.
Are you sure about that?
Nah, cool. Maybe by environmental factors, you should be going green.
Yeah.
But in terms of taste and food, nah, you will not go green.
I hear you. Well, the pandemic has officially hit you, and you came out with an idea to say that let me have my own spicy sauces and making sure that I distribute them in like the coast of Africa at large. But I just want to know that the pandemic hit you at a time where we all didn't see it coming.
Yes.
And how did that take your dreams? Where did that put you, your mindset, and your entire concept of how 2020 was supposed to be the year?
It put a lot of, I can say, a wall, because like I graduated I was supposed to graduate this year, but basically I finished my course last year.
Okay.
And then beginning of this year, I got a job straight up, you know, and I'm like, cool. So starting to learn, and you know, when you get a job straight from graduation, that's when you start implementing the plans you had, you know, like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna learn, this is what I'm gonna do, and move on into that. And then COVID hit, like, blah. And when COVID hit, because I was working for a very great chef, in terms of innovation and taste. Whenever I was in that kitchen, I was just like, yo, what's this? What's this? So, you know, so it was a good...
It was a relearning of everything.
Everything, and finding how you can blend spices and all. So while I was there, I was feeling like I'm learning every day. And I was like, okay, I could see my path now. And then COVID hit, and it's just like, God, stop. You need to calm down and relax. You know, and then figure out what's the next move, and that's basically what happened.
I hear you. It's such a beautiful one. But would you look at our socialites in South Africa, celebrities taking on cooking shows, and when we have graduates like yourself that could help them or have their own shows, have their own cooking magazines, but we're seeing our socialites enter in that market because they already have an audience. How does that make graduates feel, rather than knowing that unemployment is a big one in South Africa today? We're receiving stats of how much unemployment is a big one and how it has knocked South Africa off its feet. And you are seeing all these things. How does that make one feel, knowing that you could do the job yourself?
Well, they have the audience, you know, so you can't really blame them. With such a thing, you need to follow trends. We also taught in school that you need to follow a trend and carve, so they're carving their own niche.
But but does that not take away from the skill, the love, that pureness of cooking, of making a dish?
I believe that if you really love what you do and you dedicate yourself to it, something will happen. You know, even this socialite might come to you one day and be like, yo, cook for me. You know, you're like, oh yeah, the show, I'll cook for you. You know,
interesting.
That whole thing.
Oh man, thank you very much for joining me. But before I let you go, where can people get a hold of you across every social media platform?
I'm on Instagram. That's where you'll find mostly Instagram and Facebook, but also WhatsApp. Yeah, I'm across basically. With Instagram, it's at Trials@Ravi, which is my source page. Basically.
Source page.
So you will see everything that has to do with me learning well, like I said, it's a learning. So I'm experimenting
with everything.
People and then you can also order there, and donations if you want to. Trials of Ravi. As for my personal handle, you can find me on Facebook as MUALUSI RAVELE. And then yeah, man.
Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Well, South Africa and Africa at large, everybody watching us right there on Starset on Facebook, thank you very much for watching the Morning Express. Well, we brought you the spice literally in studio, and we also brought you the headlines and everything happening in and around your world. From myself, MBELE. See you same time, same place tomorrow morning. Adios.